Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph. Welcome to a kind of monthly vlog. This spanned from the end of November to the end of December. Basically me trying to get through my 10 before the end, as well as just like prepping for the new year. We are officially in the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. So this is my 10 before the end list. You will see that I've already read 2 books on this list. Those were for different videos. And in this video, I am focusing on trying to read 4 or 5 of the remaining books on this list. I know I'm not going to get through all 10, and as a matter of fact, I've already filmed this video. I have finished this video. I only got through 4. And honestly, that was a huge accomplishment because all 4 of them are chunkier fantasy books. But before we get into the video, I wanted to announce that I am starting a book club. This book club is going to be on Fable, and it is called The Cozy Club because that just makes sense, right? The Cozy Club is a bi-monthly, low-stakes book club. We will be reading 1 book for 2 months. So in total, we will be reading 6 books in the year. I already have our first selection, which is Piranesi. I have been meaning to get to this. If you know me, I'm really trying to get to my owned physical TBR and backlist titles. I've been doing this for the last like 4 years. It's something that I've tried to incorporate into all of my content. So why not do that in the book club? I'm not guaranteeing that there aren't going to be any new releases that I'm very excited about that I want to select for the book club, but overall I think that it's a little bit easier to have a book club where we aren't reading new releases, just so that you can get your hands on the books easier. For this year, I'm going to be selecting all the titles, but in the future, if this is successful and we really enjoy this book club, I will definitely have voting power come into play at some point. I will also announce the new book club selection at least 2 weeks before we start the book so that you have time to get it from your respective bookseller, library places, wherever you enjoy getting your books. Just so you have time to get it, I will announce it at least 2 weeks early every other month because it's bi-monthly. If you don't know what a bi-monthly book club means, it basically means that, for example, with Piranesi, we are starting in January, but you have January and February to finish the book. And then in March, we will start a new book that you will read for March and April. I know that some of these selections are going to be shorter. For example, Piranesi is quite short and you'll probably get through it quicker than 2 months, but this gives you a little bit of wiggle room if you have a lot of other obligation reads that you're trying to juggle. If you've never used Fable before, it's a really cool platform actually. They break down chapters. Now you're not going to see that with Piranesi because Piranesi is not broken down by chapters, it's broken down by parts. So you're going to see Piranesi broken down into parts. But in the future, when the book does have chapters, it's going to be broken down chapter by chapter. So you are less likely to get spoiled for anything. But overall, I just really want to have a cozy time with you all. I've always wanted to do a public book club, but I just didn't know the right platform for it. And I think Fable is the perfect space for that. I'm really excited about this platform. I'm really excited about the book club and like chatting with you all. So that doesn't mean there will not be live shows for these book clubs, but I will be actively talking to y'all in the different chats and giving you my ratings and my thoughts and my feelings. So please join me on my book club if you're interested. I will have it all linked down below. If you have any questions, let me know. And I can't wait to scream and yap and catch up about books in the Cozy Club. So anyway, let's get into the video. Welcome. The slowest turn. It is so cold in the office today that I have 3 layers on, although this layer doesn't really even count, it's just a t-shirt. But I'm here to update you because I am halfway through Glow by Raymond Kennedy, and this is obviously one of those books that I really wanted to get to by the end of the year, and the audiobook just recently came out, so Robin and I, you know, we've been buddy reading the entirety of the series so far together, so we decided we were gonna hop into this one now-ish because the audiobook I think came out in the beginning of November. It is now the end of November and we have started, and I'm actually really enjoying this. The moment that I started it, I was in it. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm vibing with this one a lot. I do feel like this is a series where each book gets better and better. The only issue that I am struggling with, and I think Robin is struggling with this as well, is our main character. Our main character, Oren, I don't know. I just don't like have any connections to her the way that I want to. In some ways, I find her to be a little bit insufferable. I think ultimately the problem that I have is while I know she's been through a lot of trauma, and I do agree that I think the beginning of the books, it made sense why her personality was the way that it was, because she's just been dealing with being used as an object for her entire existence. And now she's in a place where that's like not happening as much for her. She's sort of gaining independence and she's gaining this sense of freedom. And that's all well and good. And that is something that I am rooting for her. But I do feel like we're kind of at a stagnant point with her character, where I was hoping we would start seeing a lot more character growth, a lot more like working through her trauma, and I'm feeling like that's not happening. But I'm like so enamored with many of the side characters. Like, I'm so interested in them, I'm really connected to them, I want to know more about them. But it's just so funny to me that you can have a main character that is so easy to overlook. And honestly, at this point, I'm kind of reading because of these side characters, and I do think that the love interest really makes up for a lot of what I feel is lacking with our main character. I really, really love our male love interest. It's very rare that I like the male love interest more than the female love interest. I think there's like 3 occasions that I can think of off the top of my head, with this book being one of them, where I have liked the male love interest more, and that is especially true in this series. I really, really love our love interest. I think he has such an interesting backstory, which in this book we are getting a lot of his backstory. We're also getting different POVs that we have not gotten before, which has been extremely fun, because it's some characters that I'm like very interested in, but I didn't know if we were really going to dive that deep into their backstories. Not that we are, but we are getting POVs, which is promising, because there's 2 more books and they're quite long. So maybe. So yeah, I am really enjoying this. I'm enjoying this a lot more than book 3. I really loved book 2, and then 3 was good, not great. And then this one is starting to shape up to match my feelings of book 2, if not more so, because of all of the backstory that we are getting for our love interest. The reveals are revealing. They're doing their job, really enjoying it. The only thing that I struggle a little bit with this book, other than the main character, the sex scenes are so weirdly placed. Like, what are we doing with these sex scenes? They make me cringe so bad. I skim on a good day, but like, I am skipping full-on chapters because it'll be chapters worth of a smut scene, and I'm like, this is just so cringy, because the way that it's timed, like a situation will happen and then a smut scene will happen, and I'm like, this just doesn't go together in my brain. Like, without giving spoilers, there was a whole scene where a character like has a traumatic situation happen, and the other character's response is like, I'm gonna do you. What about a hello, a hug, and I'm sorry, take me to dinner first? I don't know, why are we anyway, it's been weird, it's been discombobulating, you know what I mean? Hello. So I wanted to update and let y'all know that I finished Glow. I actually finished this yesterday, and I needed a little bit of time to think about it. I feel like I talked about it the other day when I gave my midway update for Glow, that our main character Oren is feeling stagnant. Like, I know she's trying to work through trauma, but it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a lot of progress with her trauma and working through things. And we actually didn't spend like a whole lot of time with her throughout the entirety of this book. We did get to see other characters, we did get to know other characters, and I'm finding that I love so many of the side characters so much in this series. Like, I'm so excited to get to know them. I'm so excited we're getting different POVs, because it wasn't that I like loved her in the beginning, but I was really excited and hopeful for like a character arc that I thought was gonna start happening in the 3rd book, because there are some things that specifically happen towards the end of the 3rd book that made me have hope that this book would be a healing journey. And there is a bit of that, but it's not as much as I would hope, especially since we only have 2 more books in this series and it's already ramping up a lot. Like, the plot is ramping up, where I think we have a lot to cover in the next 2 books. So I'm interested to see, and still hopeful to see, a big character arc with Oren. But I'm also like really excited about other characters. Like, I'm so excited to see other characters' growth and what happens with their stories, and like how their stories are going to end, or like what kind of arcs they're gonna have. This is also another case where I like the male love interest more than I like the female love interest, which doesn't happen to me very often, but it has happened to me like 2 or 3 times in this year alone, and it's weird, it's bizarre. Because I'm notoriously a female love interest lover. Like, I love the female love interest. I'm always rooting for them. And it's not to say I'm not rooting for Oren. She just is annoying me. But I'm still having a really fun time. I still really love this plot. I still love all of the side characters so much that I definitely want to finish the series out because I need to know what's going to happen with everybody in the end. But I am really, really hopeful for Oren's character arc. I'm really hopeful that the trauma she's experienced for so many years will be something that we explore a little more in depth. Because the thing is that I'm not expecting her to get over the things that have happened to her for however many years it's been. It's more of, I wish we were just exploring it deeper in this book and would continue to explore it until the end. You know what I mean? Because in this book, I feel like we only skimmed the surface and I was hoping it would go a bit deeper. But I will be moving on. So there's that. I don't know when. I'll probably just wait for the next audiobook because I actually do like the audiobook experience. But otherwise, I don't know what I'm gonna start next. I feel like I'm either gonna jump into Air or Quicksilver, but probably Air because I don't know if I really need another fantasy romance at this exact moment.
I shouldn't be in love, but it's so hard to move on. You haven't changed, you stayed the same. But if you did, I'd still love you anyway. Give you the world like I promised I would. Even though you wouldn't do the same. I'd give you the world like I promised I would. Even though you wouldn't do the same.
Oh, I can finally put my hair into a little bun, a little trunchy bun. Hello. So it's almost Christmas Eve. There's a couple things happening. I am officially obsessed with Coral Island. Like, it has taken over my life, but I need to do some things before Christmas Eve. I need to do some things before the new year. One of my favorite things to do the week before the new year is to start like big clean outs. And I need to do that. I need to like start game planning. Otherwise, I'll just be getting rid of everything. I'll just throw the whole house away. I also decided that this year, instead of buying everyone gifts, I wanted to bake them cookies. I wanted to like bake them something, give them something, I don't know, more tangible, more meaningful, more like, if you don't like this thing, it's not like you're stuck with it forever. And I'm really excited about this. I actually really want 2025 to be the year that instead of me just buying shit for people, I make them things, whether that's cookies, whether that's crocheting, that's something I want to learn, knitting, that's something I want to learn, because I personally find a lot of joy in somebody making me something. But also I recognize that there are some circumstances where like it makes sense to buy somebody something. Okay, I'm just trying to be less like, let's buy everything all the time. So essentially I have 10 people I am baking cookies for, and the reality is I need to just make the dough ahead of time and probably just freeze it. So I think I'm gonna make some dough tomorrow night. I might just do like a cozy baking stream with my Patreon and like get some baking done. So I'm really excited to do it, but I'm also nervous because I do know that I'm like decent at baking, but I don't bake for many people outside of friends and family. So it's gonna be interesting to see if people like them. What if they suck? What if I actually really suck at baking? Wouldn't it be kind of funny if like my friends and my family just notoriously behind the scenes knew me as like the worst baker who just didn't stop baking? I was just really bad at baking, but they felt like they couldn't say anything to me about it because I get some joy out of it. And they're like, we can't tell her, but this is so bad. Anyway, the real reason we are here is because I've been reading Blood Over Bright Haven and I'm flying through this, and I was like, I need to give an update before I finish this book because Coral Island equals lots of audiobook listening. And let me tell you something, I've been so locked into Blood Over Brighthaven. You would know this because I did do a 20-minute a day challenge video. Who knows how many videos back that was. And I kind of talked already about how I've been really sucked into this book, really sucked into Coral Island. The combination has just made me like zone into books. And you guys, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I was a little uncertain. At like 15-20% in. I was liking it, I was sucked in, but I was like, do I like this book? Do I like what it's doing? The answer is yes. Yes, I do. And say whatever you want about Emma Wong, you cannot dispute that her character work is chef's kiss. It is so good. No matter if you like the character, if you hate the character, if you feel ambivalent about the character, you know that the character is going to be well realized. And I especially think that the characters are very well realized in here because we don't have that many characters. We're really focusing on two. We're focusing on Siona, who is our main POV, and Tommel. Siona is hellbent on this idea that she needs to work 10 times harder. She needs to pave the way for all women. And while this is true, this is very true in this patriarchal society, she also is very ignorant to a lot of things around her outside of womanhood and patriarchy, right? She has a very narrow lens when it comes to what life is like for all people in Tyrion, which is the city that they live in. And so she's just very narrow-minded. She's also very self-absorbed. She believes so thoroughly in this cause and what she's doing and the history that she's making that she doesn't really care about people around her. She doesn't care about their feelings. She's not really trying to make friends or relationships. And even the friends and relationships she has in her life, it's very one-sided. They do a lot for her. She does very little for them because, again, she's very hell-bent on the idea that she's just paving this way for all women and that she's going to make life so much better for future generations of women. Again, two things can be true, that she is potentially doing that, but also she's not that great of a person. But because this is a very patriarchal, sexist society, the high mages tried to play like a joke on her, try to kind of treat her like a joke, and they make her assistant a janitor. And the janitor is Tommel. But we meet Tommel at the very beginning of the book. The opening chapter actually is Tommel and his family, who live on the outskirts of Tyrion's society. They're actually nomadic hunters. But there's this blight beyond Tyrion's borders that starts to kill off many of these hunters and many of these nomadic people living beyond the borders. And so we meet Tommel as him and his family are crossing this really dangerous territory and trying to escape the blight. And Tommel and his niece are the only two to make it out alive during that crossing. And so he's left to raise his niece. And also, now that he has safely made it into Tyrion's borders, he is realizing a lot of the racism and the caste system that is happening within Tyrion. And so I really like the dynamic of Tommel and Siona working together. At first I didn't, because she is so self-centered, self-righteous, and she doesn't really listen to other people's problems. She doesn't really pay attention to the world beyond her own issues and the things that she's dealing with. And Tommel has lived and experienced things that like go beyond her scope, beyond her understanding. And as a matter of fact, like in many ways, she's pushing against those realities. And it is another scenario where a character is being shown things that go completely against everything that she's ever thought or believed. And that's something I really love. That's something that we saw in Sword of Kaigen. And I like that theme kind of being interwoven in most of Emma Wong's works. I also think it's a really interesting approach to use Siona as a main character here, especially if I think this book is going in the direction that it is going. But I think once you start to see the threads of this story come together and everything makes sense as to the choices Emma Wong has made with characters, character personalities, why she's putting specific people together, I do think this is brilliant. I think this is going to be a book I'm going to think about a lot once I finish it. So yeah, I'm really excited to go continue playing Coral Island and probably finish this. I really want to finish this tonight. I'm so happy. I mean, sometimes you just have to read things at the right time, and I guess this was the right time. Hello friends, happy Christmas Eve if you are somebody who celebrates Christmas. I actually finished Blood Over Brighthaven a while ago, but I just never came to give my update because I kept thinking about my thoughts and feelings. And I also ended up getting the traditional published version because I just think it's really gorgeous. I think this is a gorgeous edition. I am not a lover of sprayed edges usually, but this doesn't bother me that much. There's a little map here and it shows you what the spellograph is / does, which is like a big portion of this book. It's also on the front cover that is technically a spellograph, which now that I'm saying that out loud, I don't really know if I talked about the spellograph. Basically all of the magic that Siona does and all of the other mages do, they use a spellograph to do the magic. But going back to what I was saying, I just needed some time and space to think about this book and think about all of my thoughts and feelings on it, because initially I finished it and I was like, wow, I was so locked into that. That was such a great ride. I really enjoyed my experience with it, but it didn't quite like feel exactly like a 5 stars when I finished. But it has now been a week since I finished it and it's all I can think about. It's all I can think about. So I actually ended up giving this a 5 stars ultimately because I keep coming back to it. I keep coming back to the characters. I keep coming back to the themes and the messages and the way that these characters just like interacted with this world and each other. And one of my favorite tropes, I don't even know if you can call it a trope really, but one of my favorite themes within a book is when you have a character who is raised with a particular set of beliefs and then later in life they get faced with a completely different reality, a reality that goes against a lot of what they've believed to be true for so long. I love that. It's actually one of the reasons that I love Sword of Kaigen so much. And Sword of Kaigen, also by this author, also one of my favorite books, like in my top 10 favorite books of all time, has that same trope. And it was my realization that I love that because it's so real and you can do so much within that theme because a character can choose to deny all of the things that they're being faced with. The character can choose to try to be a martyr, to try to fight against these things, try to be neutral. You know, there's so much that could happen with that character in regards to the information that they're given that goes against everything they believe in. I think that's such a profound theme because most of us face that, right? And so it's so relatable. And I think that's one thing that Emma Wong just really does so well here is that she makes characters you fall in love with. Whether they are good, bad, or otherwise, you kind of just like get attached to them because Siona is a character that you aren't really supposed to like because she's so self-centered, and she is the character that is kind of faced with this new reality. And it changes her in a way where she continues to be insufferable with this information, and she has a completely different arc in this book than maybe what you would expect based on what we were given in the beginning, right? Because Emma Wong is so good at tackling topics that fit so well with dark academia, and the more that I think about it, the more I should have trusted that she was going to thrive in this genre, because she really goes hard with corruption, with racism, with people having to assimilate because of colonization. But in here, she takes it a step further because she's not only talking about and tackling all of those things, she's also tackling the fact that so many people turn a blind eye, especially in academia or those that think they are doing greater things for this world. And so it can excuse a lot of their behaviors and beliefs. And they believe that the littler person, the lower class people don't matter as much, and that to them lower class citizens are doing less for the world, so why should it matter if they have to be sacrificed for things, or why should it matter if somebody has to assimilate to this world because we're doing great things that are changing the future. So she really goes hard for those themes and showing you all types of characters that exist within this dark academia sphere, especially in higher education. This is something I'm always begging for in dark academia, but dark academia to me, for the most part, besides Babel, is really just like a murder mystery with people in higher education. Like I haven't read much dark academia that's really critiquing the education system, the higher education system. I've done 2 videos about this, like reading dark academia to try to figure out what that means. And I have come to the conclusion that like dark academia as a genre is not what I anticipated it to be, and that's totally cool. But if you are somebody that is looking for a critique of higher education in a dark academia setting, Blood Over Bright Haven and Babel, if you like Babel. I have my qualms with Babel in terms of like certain choices within it being fantasy, because I don't really understand why it needed to be a fantasy, but that's neither here nor there. This, for me, the epitome of what I want dark academia to be. That being said, I did want to point out just one thing, okay? I just want to point out one thing because it really frustrated me as also a reviewer. Now, I don't necessarily consider myself completely a book reviewer, even though I'm sitting here reviewing books for you. I don't necessarily consider myself somebody who's like going out of my way to write intense, in-depth, thought-provoking Goodreads reviews, nor do I give the most thought-provoking reviews on books in my videos. I'm just vibing, right? We're just vibing, we're having a good time, and I'm telling you about what I'm reading and what I don't like or like about books. And that's always evolving, and I don't even know my own taste half the time, clearly. But that being said, one of my bigger pet peeves with reviews is this idea that we need to compare things. And I'm not saying like when you say, oh, this is for fans of X, Y, and Z. That's a little bit different. You're letting people know the tropes and the themes, etc., that they can expect in that book, right? Fine. What I have an issue with, and the best example that I can give of this, is when everybody tries to say that any heist book that ever exists is Six of Crows light. As if Leigh Bardugo invented the fucking heist. Please, she even references Ocean 11's as a huge inspiration for Six of Crows. So I hate when we as reviewers, and I'll include myself because I've probably done this before, but I hate when we decide that things can't be similar. And so there was a review talking about how this book was Babel light, and it really irritated me because the review was not super thoughtful in the way that it compared these two books. And I just personally think that, especially with books that are by marginalized authors, we need to take a little bit of a step back and think about what we're saying for a second. Because why is it okay for the rest of dark academia to follow a certain formula, very formulaic, but Babel and Blood Over Bright Haven are not allowed to be similar? I just think we need to take a step back and think about that. I just think we need to take a step back, think about that. And I was just really disappointed by that review because it was like the first review that I saw, and it just was frustrating because yes, at the end of the day, they do tackle similar themes, but the ways in which they get to the point of those themes are vastly different. Like, they are so vastly different. I just hate to see that we are comparing something and calling it lesser than the other thing because it's so similar to X, Y, and Z. Two things can exist, and authors don't make up themes. Okay, I don't want to get too heated about it, but I just needed to put that out there because it was just so disappointing to read, especially after feeling so like connected to this book. And typically, I don't care if other people dislike books that I like, but that particular review rubbed me the wrong way because I feel like it just missed the point. You were so close, but so far, you know what I mean? Anyway, that being said, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. And I think that if you love an audiobook experience, Moira Quirk, is that her name? Moira? I said it and then I was like, this feels wrong. No, it is. I was right. Moira Quirk narrates this, and she also narrated Gideon the Ninth. But if you have the Gideon the Ninth voice stuck in your head right now and you're like, oh, I don't know if I would want to read that for a more serious book, she actually has a very serious tone in this book. And it was incredible. Like, I was so engaged into the audiobook. I don't know if I've been so locked into a book this year. Moira put her whole quirkussy into this, and 5 out of 5, thank you so much. I am moving into my next read for my 10 before the end, and that is Quicksilver, and this is already off to a bang. So I'm excited because I definitely think I need a book that's sort of a fun, silly, goofy time, just because this book was really heavy. And then between Blood Over Bright Haven and now picking up Quicksilver, I did read a whole other book for a different video, and that one was quite heavy as well. So I feel like I just need a silly, goofy time, and this seems like it's gonna deliver. But I picked up a book. I picked up a book that you're all gonna be like, what are you doing right now? Hear me out. Please hear me out. I am rereading of The Assassin's Apprentice. Did you think I was gonna hold this up? I don't know. Yeah, Okay, so here's the sitch. Here's the story. I went to the bookstore because I actually have been wanting to pick this up, but I told myself that I wasn't allowed to buy it until I finished it, and I knew that I loved it, right? And obviously 5 stars, loved it. And then, you know, in Discord, we were kind of talking about the floppy paperbacks of Assassin's Apprentice. And previous to this year, you could only get the UK version ones, which they are shorter and they're a little stiffer. So I never like annotated any of my experiences with a Robin Hobb book, which feels like a crime. And I decided that I wanted to do a slow reread of the Farseer trilogy this coming year in 2025. I hate that. And so when I went to the bookstore, I got this. Just floppy. So beautifully floppy. And I always knew that I wanted to collect these. I just didn't know when. And I didn't know that when I walked into that store to get Blood Over Bright Haven, that it was my fateful day to restart Robin Hobb. Also, it's like the perfect time because I won't finish this probably until 2025 starts, right? And so that's gonna be the tone of my year, just sad, depressing. So yeah, I'll probably talk about this in this video as well. I know it's not technically a 10 before the end, but why not? Why not add on another book? Also, while we were out at the bookstore, I needed to go to Michael's because I am baking a bunch of cookies for Jared and I, but also for my coworkers as gifts. And I needed to go to Michael's to get some boxes to put the cookies in for everyone. I've also decided that 2025 is the year that I'm gonna be honing in on some new hobbies. So I wanted to crochet. It's been something I've been wanting to do since 2020. So much so that my Christmas present that year from Jared was a crocheting beginner's kit. And so I have hooks and I have some yarn, but I really wanted to get more yarn. So we were in Michael's and I was like, let me just check it out. And I asked a few people in the Discord, like some of the best yarn to start out with, and they pointed me in the direction of acrylic because apparently it's the easiest to work with as a beginner. So I got a bunch because it was buy one, get one 50% off. So I got this really pretty blue color. I got this like terracotta, I guess is what you would call it. Speckly forest green color. This really pretty golden yellow. A speckly tan color. And a heather gray. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure this out. Just you wait.
I got something for you. Not my heart, not my space, not my street, which you stay. There's no point without you, and I wanna leave.
Can I trust you on these things that I don't know? Can we all just agree to go?
'Cause I wanna leave.
Hi buds. Today I'm starting my office renovation ? It's not really renovation. We're just changing things up. So it's been in the cards for the last like 2, almost 3 years that I have wanted a new desk. I've wanted a new desk set up because I spend so much time at my desk just editing. Now I have work from home days. So yesterday, Jared and I went to IKEA and we finally got a desk. I'm really excited about this desk because it's super minimal. It's pretty bright. Our next door neighbors have been renovating their house and they extended it. So it actually cut off a lot of the sunlight that used to be in this room. So I'm hoping this new desk setup is a little bit brighter. I also bought a bunch of mood lighting and I got some desk accessories that I think are gonna make my life a little bit easier. Some of them are not coming in until tomorrow or like the beginning of January. So I'm just gonna show you as much as we end up getting done today and the next few days. But today is the day where I have to clean out this messy office because it's kind of been a catch-all for everything right now. We haven't put a lot of effort into the office, even though it's where I spend the majority of my time. So I'm really excited to finally get it together. So here's hoping that in the next couple of weeks, we make this office very, very cozy.
What's still alive inside your mind, my dear? And do you find it terrifying there? You always let me know. You always let me go my way. You always let me know. You never let it show my deed. You are my only friend to the end.
Hello friends. So I have been spending a lot of time cleaning things out. Okay, I've been cleaning so many things out in my house because that's just how I am during the new year. I mean, I guess the end of the year, beginning of the new year makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. And I love a moment of making your space just new and different. So that's what I've been doing. I'm really on this journey to try to make my office the most cozy place and a place that I really want to be, because I spend a lot of time there with editing. I work from home, and the fact that I do reading sprints and different live shows in there, but I also like journal and do art, and it all takes place in the office. It's like supposed to be the most comfortable place for me, but it's really not. It hasn't been like my focus in this house this last year, but it is now, and it's been really fun. I have had a lot of time with doing that and like cleaning out my closet and cleaning out my art supplies and cleaning out my books to read Quicksilver. And I have been, and I am pretty much halfway through. I am literally at 299 pages in. I'm gonna say this right now, this is not a 5-star for me. This is not giving a 5-star feel. I completely see why people are loving this and like losing it over this book. I just don't think that that's gonna be me, but I am having a really fun time. I will say that this has been a really great reading vlog in the sense that every book that I've picked up has really sucked me in for the most part. And I've gotten through them relatively quickly, and I want to be in these worlds and I want to be in these books. The thing about this one is I think it's a very unique world. I really, really like the world. I like how we're learning about the world. I like the magic system. I like the creatures that we're being introduced to. I like that we're slowly learning things. And there's definitely a good pace in here for reveals and plot twists and things like that, because we're already halfway-ish through this book and there have already been some really big reveals or interesting reveals and interesting plot twists. So I feel like I'm gonna be saved from that big, like, everything is saved till the last 10% of the book and we're getting plot twist after plot twist. And it's definitely gonna end on a cliffhanger because that's just kind of how fantasy romance is. And I'm expecting that, I anticipate that, but I feel like we've gotten enough reveals and intrigue and twists so far that it's interesting, it's keeping my attention. And I won't be bothered if things are really explosive in the end because we've already gotten a lot of interesting twists and turns already. So I do think that in that sense, the pacing is really great, but there are some lulls for me. I'm actually at a point in the book right now where I'm hitting a little bit of a lull. However, I normally ride really hard for the female main characters in fantasy romance and in fantasy. I do. I love a strong female character. I love a weak female character. I love a stupid female character. I love women's wrongs. But recently, I've read a couple of fantasy romances that the female main characters are so frustrating, and I'm thinking that it is the epidemic of first person narrative. I used to think I didn't care if it was first or third person, but the more and more I read fantasy romance and the more it sticks with being in first person narrative and not dual POV, I can't do it. Like, if you're giving me first person narrative, please give me dual POV, please. It doesn't even have to be the male love interest, although that is preferable. It needs to be a different person. that is not this main character. She is grating on me. She is really bothering me. I just wish there were more women in this book. This is something that I'm also really struggling with. I do feel like a lot of the fantasy romance that I have picked up has done a great job of having strong female friendships. There are two other female characters who are not really present in the book. One of them, she definitely seems chill, but she's like never around. She was in the beginning and now she's just like not around. And then the secondary female character, everyone hates. Everyone hates her. Otherwise, I am having a good time with this book. I'm surprised to say that the world and the world building and the plot have been the most engaging part of the story for me. I'm not super attached to anyone in this book, which is probably why this is also not giving me a 5-star feeling, because I'm very character driven. And the female love interest, she's just really getting on my nerves. She's not like other girls, okay? She's definitely not like other girls. You've never met a girl like her. But there is a side character that we meet in this book who I think is hilarious, and over the course of reading this book has really, really grown on me as a character. Like, I find myself giggling at everything that this person says because it's just so unhinged. I am really looking forward to the end of this, like the second half of this book, because I think we're really getting into the meat of the world and the plot. There's obviously a war. We've obviously met one of the villain-like characters, but I think there has to be more to it, right? And so I'm excited to see where that's gonna go and what that's gonna lead to. But to give you a brief summary of this book, we're following our main character, Saris, and Saris is human. She lives in the human world, and the human world at this point in time is ruled by a mad queen named Madra, and she has divided the kingdom into factions. So we have the poorest of the poor who have to ration food, have to ration water. So Saris has spent pretty much her entire life stealing and swindling other people to try to get by. And one day when she steals this plate of armor that's like made out of gold, her brother ends up getting a hold of it, and he sort of goes off the rails, gets caught with this plate of armor, and Saris steps up and kind of is like acting as a martyr in that moment and says like, oh no, I'm the one who did it, which she really is, but her brother was the one that got caught with it. So she takes full credit and responsibility for stealing the plated armor. She ends up going to Queen Madra to face her consequences. And in that interaction, she ends up accidentally opening a portal to the fairy world. This is extremely shocking to Saris because so far as she knew, fae were out of fairy tales. Most of the humans believe that fae are cannibalistic, murdering creatures. And so she's extremely scared and she doesn't really want anything to do with the situation, but she is now stuck in the fairy world. She meets who is presumably the love interest, Kingfisher, and she meets another character who is kind of taking care of her and doing some bedside manner. This is the other female character that we meet who we don't really get a lot of interaction with. And she basically tells Saris that she is stuck in this fairy world because there's this thing called Quicksilver, and Quicksilver is really the only thing that can portal people between the world. But Quicksilver is not in abundance, and not everybody can actually interact with Quicksilver safely. It's a very dangerous material, and Kingfisher is one of the people who can interact with Quicksilver, but it does have a consequence for him. And so in order to get back to the human world, Saris has to strike a deal with Kingfisher. But she takes the deal because she feels like she needs to get back to the human world and save her brother. She's afraid of what Madra is gonna do now that she kind of escaped the situation. So that is where I'm kind of at in the book. She's brokered this deal and she's kind of learning the ins and outs of the deal. I'm really excited to see what the second half has in store because I feel like things are going to go off the rails anytime now.
What's it like inside your mind, my dear? Terrified of getting over you. You always let me know. You always let me go my way. You always
good morning. I finished Quicksilver. I will talk to you about that in a little while, but I'm about to go live to do some like 2025 goals, what we're trying to achieve in 2025, vision boards for my Patreon with Aaron. But before that, I wanted to show you my like life planner that I recently got. It's the same one that I used last year, but I don't think I ever showed it to you. So since this vlog is basically me getting life together before 2025, I'm going to show you my little doodle planner. To you having finished Quicksilver. I did really like the second half of this. I still really struggled with our main character, especially as we got further into the book. I still maintain the fact that I think there needs to be more women in this book, and the few women that we have in this book, it's not enough. It's not enough. I want really good female friendships because there are a lot of great male characters in here. I grew attached to them. I really like those side characters, but there is not enough women in here. And I'm hoping that as the series goes on, maybe when the world expands, maybe when we are introduced to more characters or more characters come into play for whatever reason, we will get some good female friendships. But at this point, there's no real prospects of a good female friendship. Maybe if the one female character who everyone is like, she's stupid and we hate her, maybe she'll become a character that like has this redemption arc and Saris and her will end up having like this amazing friendship. But at this point in time, it's just not feeling that way. That all being said, I had a really fun time with this. I really do like the world. I really like the plot. I do think the two main characters, despite some of my irritation with them or feeling a little bit at a distance with them, I think that they can grow on me. I think that they will have great character arcs, especially because of the way that this ended, things are drastically going to shift for our characters going forward. And I'm typically a second book type of girl, but I also just like the rest of a series more than I like the first book in a series initially. It's not really until a reread when the first book in a series grows on me a little bit more because I already know where things are going. I see threads that I didn't see before. I pick up on things that didn't make sense to me maybe in the moment of reading it for the first time. So I have hope that this is going to be a really great series, and I'm definitely going to move on with the series. I think that this could be a favorite because the world really sucked me in. But as it stands, like there were just a few things that I was too bothered by for it to be like a new favorite. Also, the lack of really loving the two characters. And I hope in the future we get multiple POVs. I just don't know, because I think a lot hinges on us not knowing what's going on with the male main character in here. The thing with that is I've seen this in other fantasy romances where the first one is singular POV because the male love interest is trying to be mysterious. And then as you get further into the series, the multiple POVs kind of come into play. So hopefully that's what happens, but I fear for myself that it may not. Sorry, this is so funny, and I have to update you about this because I baked all of the cookies in this vlog, but one of my coworkers, I baked her a batch of those cookies for Christmas, and she ended up getting sick, so she didn't get them till today. And she literally texted me and said, hello, Cookie Queen. Which is so funny. And she said that she took a bite of every single flavor and can't decide which one is her favorite. I'm going to finally get back to air. I did read like 100 and so pages of this for this vlog earlier in the month. And then I just kept getting skip the line loans for other things and just not wanting to read it. I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous that I'm not gonna like this book for some reason. And I think it's just because I've been anticipating this book for a while. I really love Sabbatahir. I'm nervous. So anyway, I'm gonna dedicate the time to finally listening to it. Actually, earlier today when I was cleaning, I did restart the audiobook. So I think I'm like 8 chapters in. We're still getting going. So I'm interested to see how much heartbreak I experience because the Ember and the Ashes, So much heartbreak. So much heartbreak. I love that series. I know it's not for everyone. I know not everyone loves that series, but I do. And yeah. Okay. I'm gonna get back to it, I guess.
I found you, the one you call. You got what I need, and you always be turning my sky blue. But maybe I can't get to you. Why don't you?
Hi, I'm gonna look really familiar, like from the introduction. I realized that I forgot to film an introduction to this, but also, you know, book club, I wanted to kind of announce that. I didn't want to do like a separate video for it, so I put it at the beginning of this video, and I'm so excited. Hopefully y'all have joined if you're interested, and I can't wait to talk to you there. But anyway, I finished Air. I know I didn't give a midway update, and mainly that's because when I sat down to give my midway update about this book, I realized I didn't know how I was going to be able to talk about this book fully to give you a midway update, so I'm just giving you my full thoughts and feelings now. Mainly, that is stemming from the fact that you absolutely cannot read this if you want to read Ember in the Ashes. And as a matter of fact, even if you don't want to read Ember in the Ashes, I don't know that this is a good entry point because it's not going to teach you about the world the way that Ember in the Ashes is. There was a lot in here that I knew intuitively because I've read that series like 3 or 4 times. So the world building made sense to me. A lot of these characters felt very close to me because they're children or nieces, nephews of main characters in Ember in the Ashes. But overall, we are really getting to revisit a lot of characters that we know and love from the first series, and the world is very familiar. We're exploring kind of different parts of it, different parts of the religion and lore. It's not like we're rehashing completely things that happened in Ember in the Ashes that were still sort of open-ended. It's more that a lot of what happened in the quartet is informing what's happening in this book. So to give you a little bit of a synopsis without like going too in depth about it, because I fear spoiling anything from Ember. Essentially, there is a murder mystery happening here, and we know that one of our main characters, Quill, his distant relative, but also close because he grew up with them, their youngest son ends up getting murdered. And this sets off a string of events for all 3 of the characters that we are following. So at the heart of this, it's a murder mystery, but there are a lot of different things going on. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I do feel like it's super spoilery to the Ember Quartet. Overall, I really had a great time. I love Sepatahir. I feel like if you didn't like the Ember Quartet and you read it all the way through, and you were interested in this series just to see how she's changed as a writer, or if you like these characters more, I don't think that you're gonna like this any more than the Ember Quartet. For me, it was perfect because the tone felt similar. I felt like I was back in the Ember world, which I think is important when you're coming back to a world that you're already familiar with, especially when it's been quite a few years between the 2 series. It's probably easy to feel like the world feels different, and it felt different enough in the sense that like we were exploring something vastly different than what we explored in Ember in the Ashes, but the world felt familiar. I knew what we were talking about. I knew the background enough. I remembered the world building enough, but like I said, I don't think it's a good entry point for anyone because the world would feel so unfamiliar and things would not get explained to you, which I don't know if that's a critique of this series. Like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing for people. I'm so familiar with it that I didn't really think about it. But then when I was reading reviews, I saw people saying that they started here as their entry point, and it felt so unwelcoming. I really liked the new characters in here as well. I really loved their POVs. This has 3 POVs and the characters were very distinct. I really enjoyed how they interacted with each other and interacted with the world in their own respective POVs. And overall, I liked the plot of this one. I would say that one of the issues that I had, which I think is a big issue for a lot of people with the Ember Quartet, is the pacing was a little all over the place for me. There were definitely a lot of lulls in this one where I was like, okay, where are we getting to? What's the point of what we're doing? But then she would bring me back in and I would be interested again. And then my only other complaint is that there were some fight scenes or some confrontational scenes in here that wrapped up so confusingly conveniently, and I didn't understand how they wrapped up. Even at the very end of this book, I was left with a lot of questions where it's not necessarily because she left me on a cliffhanger, which yeah, she did, but also because I was confused on how it all wrapped up. And that was the third experience that I had in this book where there was a confrontation or a fight and I didn't really understand how it wrapped up. I found myself rereading some of those fight scenes because it didn't make sense to me how they wrapped up, and even when I reread them, I just felt like they weren't done well. So those are my like biggest critiques of this book, but overall I had a really great time, and I think that if you did love the Ember Quartet or you're reading it and you're loving it, you're gonna have a great time because I think these are great new additional characters. I think the storyline is gonna feel familiar but new and fresh, and I'm really interested to see what she does with the rest of the series because the way that it ended, I'm like, I have no fucking clue where this is going. So sadly, this one, not a 5-star, but really, really loved it. And I think that the next book is gonna be really explosive. I hope the fight scenes are a little more fleshed out in terms of how they resolve. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for the last like month and a half while I organize my life and get my desk set up. I did not show you a complete desk setup because I really haven't finished it. I'm still waiting on a few things that aren't gonna be here till like January 6th or something like that. So I will definitely give you a desk update in another vlog coming soon. That being said, I hope you had a very happy holiday. I hope that your reads were amazing in 2024, but are even more amazing in 2025. I hope that 2025 treats us well, even though many of us are scared to go into 2025. I hope it treats us well. I really do, besties. Let me know down below some of your New Year's resolutions if you make any. Otherwise, if you just want to say hi, feel free to leave a firecracker emoji. Firecracker? Fireworks emoji down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Bye, friends.